we're online. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's Cabinet meeting. I am Councillor Ian Edwards, Leader of the Council, and I am Chairman of the Cabinet. Before we get into the meeting, welcome to the gentlemen for the press. It's nice for you to be here. Because you're with us, I'll just remind everybody to have their mobile phones turned off and all other devices. We're not expecting a fire alarm. If one goes, we will escort you out of the building. We'll be going back the way you came. If that just happens to be blocked, we know alternative routes, so don't panic. There's two of you and plenty of us that are familiar with this part of the building. Welcome to those that may be following us on YouTube. We'll get into the agenda, please. Apologies for absence. Mark.
Chairman, all Cabinet members are present.
Thank you very much. Item 2, colleagues, are there any declarations of interest in matters before this meeting? There are none. Thank you. And item 3 is to approve the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting. They're in the packet, pages 1 to 16. Are they agreed, please? Thank you. Item 4, I am confirming that there are items of business in both Parts 1 and Part 2. This means that there are matters of discussion of commercial confidence. They are discussed in private in Part 2. There will be a break between two sections of the meeting where we break off the CCTV, the YouTube link, and at that stage, gentlemen, I must ask you to retire, but it'll be pretty clear when we're at that point, okay? So we're now going to move straight into item 5, the Part 1 items, Hillingdon Strategic Climate Action Plan. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Leader. The Climate Change Action Plan is returning to Cabinet for adoption following an extensive public consultation. A wide range of groups and individuals responded to the consultation and webinars were held with resident associations. This plan builds on the January 19 Council motion to become carbon neutral by 2030. The Council already has a positive track record with reducing its own CO2 emissions, reducing from 21,608 tonnes in 2009 to 12,487 in 2020. The plan has 9 themes covering our own operations and our wider community leadership role. The report has 4 recommendations on page 18 that we note the findings and positive response from a comprehensive consultation exercise which has informed the final Strategic Climate Action Plan, approves Hillingdon's Climate Strategic Action Plan for adoption, notes that officers will prepare operational plans to drive forward and fully implement the objectives set out in the strategic plan, with progress regularly being reported to Cabinet, and notes that we will undertake a review of this strategy in July 2024. I move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. And if I may, I thank you and the officer team for bringing this forwards. It has taken some great development. I am very pleased that it is before us. Of course, the challenge now is to convert these fine intentions into action, but I do know that on our past records of achievement and under your leadership that we will be successful. So I thank you. Colleagues, are these 4 recommendations agreed? Thank you. Turning to agenda item 6, the older people's plan update. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Leader. The report before us tonight is an update on the progress in delivering the action plan for this older people's plan. We have a plan which is led by our older people's champion, the Leader of the Council, Councillor Edwards, and it sets out a range of actions that we and our partners undertake in order to help our older people have a better quality of life. It's an excellent plan going forward, and the themes around it are safety and security, preventative, keeping independent and healthy, and supporting our older people within the community. We really value the work that is done here, and I'll just highlight a few things. So under our safety and security, we still continue to provide the free burglar alarms to people over 65. This has been very, very successful, and since the beginning of the scheme, in 2008, we've installed over 11,000 alarms, which help people feel much more secure when they're leaving their home. Also, around preventative care, helping people stay away from hospitals and doctors. We have Telecare Line, which is a very useful service with sensors and detectors all back to a control centre. Also, keeping independent and healthy. Exercise classes have been going on during the pandemic, which has been fantastic. And dementia continues to be a serious problem. So throughout December and April, online support has been going on with Zoom sessions happening each week. So there's some really fantastic work going on here. We really value the way our older people contribute to our assembly as well. It's hearing the older person's voice and helping us shape the plan to make their lives much more independent. So I want to thank our partners as well, Age UK, for all the work they do to help keep older people safe. And just to say on that level that Age UK have helped older people get over £493,000 in benefits, which enables them to use money to help their lives again. So this is an excellent plan going forward and before Cabinet, and I would just like to note the successes to date and continue to deliver the plan going forward for the next year. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Palmer. I would just like to add my thanks for the report and for the achievements that are in here, hard work again of officers. Particularly, it's been a tough year for all residents, but it has fallen heavily on our older people who may have suffered from isolation greater than most. And what pleases me in this report is the fact that we have done our best to keep services running directly through them by providing online activities and Zoom sessions. I think that is highly commendable. I also draw attention to the activity around helping people, older people, access online material, our digital inclusion. This is at paragraph 22. It is great that we are investing time, energy and resources into helping older people stay online or get online. And it's also worth noting paragraph 14, that you can't say older people aren't familiar with the use of modern technology because 78% of them used it to apply for their brown badge scheme. So there is a high level of digital inclusion, but it isn't complete, and I'm pleased that therefore we support those that are presently have challenge. Is this report noted, colleagues? Thank you. Turning to now agenda item 7, the Hillingdon's housing strategy. Councillor Labour again.
Thank you, Leader. The agenda item 7 is the draft housing strategy 2021-2 to 2025-6, which is for consultation. Following the consultation and us taking account of comments received, it will then return to Cabinet for approval prior to its adoption by the full Council in the early part of next year. The strategy sets out how the Council will develop its housing policy in the coming years. The policy reflects the actions we will need to take to meet the Charter for Social Housing Residents, and we are the largest social housing landlord in the borough with some 13,000 properties ourselves, as well as those that are managed by housing associations and others. We will need to support independent living for groups with disabilities and have provision for rough sleepers. In the case of these groups, this is about partnership working because often a multi-agency approach is required to assist people to remain housed and in the longer term. We have a significant housing waiting list and we will need more of all types of affordable housing. This will come from a mix of sources including low-cost home ownership, private rented, housing association and council social housing. Our planned regeneration schemes on the Avondale and Hayes Town Centre estates will contribute in the coming years to an increased supply of housing, as well as improving the quality of the stock. I'd like to record my thanks to council officers, in particular Debbie Weller and Mark Billings, for their work on this strategy, and I move that we approve the strategy for consultation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lavery, if I could just call on our colleagues here from the press to say you can really add value here by announcing that this strategy is available for consultation. Housing is fundamental importance to every resident, and the greater attention that can be drawn to this strategy and the opportunity for residents to comment on it is welcomed, and you can add value to us tonight by taking that forward for us. So I thank you on that basis. Colleagues, is the recommendation agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Agenda item 8, the monthly council budget monitoring report. Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Leader. The observant amongst you will notice that this report has been restructured from the basis on which it was produced in previous months, and that is very much in the interests of transparency and user-friendliness. So within Section A of the report, we have a summary of the Council's financial position and performance for month 2 of the current financial year, for the year 21-22, which in other words takes us through to May 2021. These results indicate an underspend of $351,000 against our budget on the general fund revenue count. However, I must emphasise that this is the first occasion on which results have been finalised for the current financial year, and of course we are at a point of greatest distance from our year-end results, so it's too early to identify compelling trends in our spending patterns. However, our projected year-end general balances will stand at an improved position of $26.45 million at the end of the financial year. Our annual savings target for 21-22 is £10.4 million, and I can report that we've already banked £1.4 million of that, whilst a further £8 million is in various stages of delivery. However, we do perceive challenges in the delivery of savings relating to a leisure centre contract, albeit that the cost of this will be mitigated by central government COVID-19 funding in the short to medium term. Financial pressures on the council arising from COVID-19 in the current financial year have so far been identified as amounting to about £14.2 million. Central government funding to cover these pressures amounts to £16.96 million and has already been agreed, and in addition the council has £10.2 million of earmarked reserves set aside if required. Hence, we're in a strong position to deal with any unforeseen pressures which might arise. Turning to the General Fund Capital Programme, an underspend of £4.5 million is reported for the period 21-22 to 25-26, following a reappraisal and rephrasing of the capital budgets over this period. £3 million of this underspend arises in the current financial year. The dedicated schools grant shows a projected overspend against budget of £1.6 million. This is primarily driven by an adverse variance of £1.2 million in respect of the high needs block, which is attributable to a higher incidence of cost and special educational needs demand than projected. Our projected cumulative deficit on the school's budget stands at £34.2 million as at 31st of March 22, and as previously reported, our officers continue their dialogue with the Department for Education in order to agree a repayment programme and a structure of funding which will see a balanced budget in later years. Our housing revenue account shows a small surplus of £10,000 for the year. This is a positive variance of £28,000 on the budgeted position for 21-22. Capital expenditure for the housing revenue account is broadly on track, albeit that £6.8 million has been rephased from 21-22 into later years. Work continues to reappraise capital budgets for the housing revenue account in light of the need to further expand our housing stock, a major regeneration scheme, and the continuing requirement for maintenance. If if I can turn to the recommendation set out on page 216, that is that we note the budget monitoring position and treasury management update as at May 2021, as outlined in Part A of this report. Furthermore, set out on page 237 of the agenda pack are recommendations A to G in Part B of this report that have a financial consequence. I move the adoption of these recommendations by Cabinet. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goddard. This is a good report. It is positive that we continue to be underspent. We expect no less in our council, but it is only through the diligence of your stewardship, Martin, and the work of our finance officers under Paul Wayman that we achieve this and maintain this strong, stable position. Colleagues, are all of the recommendations as outlined agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, that draws us to the end of part 1 of the meeting. We're now going to go into the closed session of part 2. So I must ask you please to retire. Thank you very much, and I'll ask Mark to break the link, the YouTube link. Thank you.